HOAs, are they the devil that we've heard they are? Here are our thoughts and more in today's episode of The Den. The Den, powered by the Lions Group, where we talk real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. We're a small team of partners sharing what we've learned along the way. Backed by over $500 million in real estate sales and over 2,300 successful transactions. You'll hear from proven experts and industry leaders with a fresh take on what's happening in real estate and beyond. Welcome to The Den. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Den. And today we're going to be talking about HOAs, COAs, deed restrictions, things that can impact your ability to use your property the way you may want to use it. But before I get into that, let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lions Group to my right. Paul, hand me the Rockberry, Aspen, the Ninja Gruen, and the boss, Shannon Martin Martinez. My name is Ben, HOA Lions. Those are acronyms, Paul. HOA and COA. It's better than HOC-TUA or some weird stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Homeowners Association and Condo Owners.
Just took a left turn.
Yeah, HOA, terrible left turn. Today we're going to be talking about restrictions on your property. And HOAs, they've come up quite a bit lately. We have people that move here from all over the United States. And we get this question quite a bit. Is it in an HOA? You know, and it seems to a lot of people evoke a lot of emotion. Most people are anti-HOA that have moved here from other areas. And people that are here, a lot of them tend to like the HOA. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of their power that they can exhibit over homeowners, but also some other things like deed restrictions and covenants. What are covenants and how can that impact your property? So Paul, I'm coming straight to you. Yep.
I'm already yawning on this one.
It's in your wheelhouse, HOAs. I know you love them, don't you?
I would never live in an HOA. Well, I can't say never. I mean, if it's a nice enough house, and it depends on the HOA too.
Yeah. So have you had any experiences with bad HOAs? Or well, let's step back before we get into that. That's the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about what an HOA does. Just give us kind of a rundown what a HOA or a COA.
Well, in my experience, I'll say that first.
Okay.
I don't live in an HOA. In my experience, HOAs and COAs it's kind of a collective understanding between a community that we're going to live by a certain rules. Somebody is there to govern and to enforce the rules. It's usually about the exterior of the home. Some of the rules about what you can park on your property, fence heights, how many cars you can have, those types of things. And they try to keep the aesthetic of the community to a certain standard. Okay.
And so when you say like a general understanding, oftentimes HOAs, homeowners associations, or COAs, condo owner associations, they put these rules in place when the development is built out, right? So Then a body is formed, and that body governs the rules that are established, and they enforce the rules that are established. And some of these rules can teeter on being egregious in certain areas. Yeah. We've heard some stories of that. But is that a fair statement of what an HOA and a COA is?
Yeah, it's a good restatement of what I said.
Yeah. I let you pave the way and then I come back through.
Yeah, thank you. It makes you sound smart.
That does.
Just correct what I say wrong. The one bad story that I have is there's a small HOA in town here that a lot of people don't even know is an HOA. And at one point, so they can do assessments for like repave the road or to redo some landscaping or, those types of things. This one was for repaving the road, and they levied a $750 a month
special assessment
to repave the road. And it just so happened that when I was moving somebody into that area, that this HOA was $700. So we had to try to figure out when it was going to be taken off, if it was going to be taken off, because they can levy those things at any time.
At any point, yeah. And to that, I think I know which one you're talking about. And to their credit, they actually levied a $750 paving credit for, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And then they backed it off. Then they went back to their normal dues. And
Not
to
like
me,
a toll, like a bridge or something.
I mean,
like that.
exactly, because once you open that door, oftentimes they're like, ooh, we got more money. People are used to it now. Let's just leave it in place and keep the money flowing. Because HOAs and COAs typically charge, I would say the vast majority of them charge a monthly fee. And that monthly fee starts building the coffer. And the coffer is what's used to beautify the areas or take care of the exteriors of the property or things like that, just depending on what type of development you're in. And so to their credit, they backed that off, which was awesome because it was kind of like a short-term assessment or a tax that reverted back to normal after the improvement was made. So
correct.
Yep. Awesome.
And I think it was so high because there's so few homes in that HOA.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of at the end of a cul-de-sac, a single street that goes down there. But it could be argued that that was a great improvement for the neighborhood, right? It helped improve the value of the homes that are in that HOA, that specific HOA. Aspen, I'm going to come to you. HOAs are based on what Paul and I just discussed. Is that your general understanding of how an HOA works?
Yes, that's the general understanding. I like HOAs. I am not opposed to them at all. I think it helps keep things clean and nice in a certain aesthetic. It helps keep your property value. But I also think it really depends on your neighbors. Because, we live in the same neighborhood. We have the same HOA, but I would say our experiences are probably different, just depending on who your neighbors are. I know in my street, one, it's kind of an off street, so people aren't just driving through it. And so there's no one, just being like, they're not following the rules on a main strip there. But also it's kind of a understanding. There's a lot of kids on my street specifically. The kids playing outside, the kids kind of doing their thing, the teenagers' cars, because technically in our HOA, we're not supposed to have cars parked along the road for more than 24 hours unless you have a guest staying. It's kind of just an understanding that you do you, we'll do us, and we all just kind of watch out for the kids and mind our own business. I could see if you had a neighbor that didn't want the kids in the neighborhood. I can see HOAs being very restrictive for children. And I think that's where I kind of have an issue with some HOAs, but I like it. I don't mind. And then we go across the border. Almost all the neighborhoods in Durango have HOAs or some variation of it, typically just for snow removal and road maintenance. Though there's a lot of county roads out there, a lot of dirt roads, and there's a lot of HOAs, but mostly just for snow removal.
Yeah. And that's a good thing for the area because they have to have, someone has to coordinate, especially when you're getting dumped on. You have these big snowstorms that come through. You're like, who takes care of the roads, right? How do we get access to our homes? So it's good to have an HOA in place. In the HOA that we live in, what are some of the rules that we have to abide by that would be enforced by the HOA?
So there's, your architectural review board. So you can only build this with these type of materials in this area. Setbacks have to be this. Fence heights, especially like on the golf course, you're going to have more rules about what you can do in your backyard. No sheds is kind of a funky rule in our neighborhood. You're not allowed to have any sheds. Trash cans have to be out within, I think, a day.
24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah. You have to have if you have boats or RVs or anything, they have to be behind a fence. Same for your trash cans. They have to be behind a fence. Honestly, it's not that bad. Like nothing is that crazy. If you're on a main, a main part of the drive, you have to have sidewalks put in whenever you're building your house. It's not anything too crazy. Now they have started adding some more rules against electric motorized things, mainly for kids. So if you don't have a driver's license, they don't want you driving electric scooters, electric bikes, which I kind of have rub with because I was talking to some people at the police department and they said that the only reason they are trying to enforce that is because it's technically private property, but you're allowed to ride these things in neighborhoods. So per the police department. So whether or not the HOA can enforce that, I'm just kind of staying out of it and not.
Yeah, because it is something to consider for our kids. I mean, I can see one side of the argument is it's not safe to have a 12-year-old driving a golf cart. I get it. I mean, it's a kind of a motorized vehicle, if you will. obviously it's got a governor on it. It's not street legal, things like that. But then you get into like a bike, right? Well, a bike can be an electric bike. An electric bike, is motorized. So, now where's that? There's a bunch of gray area. So you don't want kids on bikes now? I mean, they're being kids. And then those scooters that they stand on and they hold on to. I mean, where do you draw the line?
I say there needs to be an HOA rule where kids need to wear helmets.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing that drives me crazy. I'm like, okay, these electric things and no one's wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, let's make rules that are inclusive and whatnot. And then I also kind of get where I'm like, but then there's people coming off the golf course drunk on their golf carts. Shouldn't they be?
But they're old enough to drive.
Yeah, but shouldn't they be held accountable?
Sure.
So I'm like, if you're, not being safe driving, shouldn't you? It should be the same rules. So I kind of go, I have found a lot of the rules that get added typically get added against the kids, which I don't really love. I can see why, especially with how quickly things are changing with, kids technology and in regards especially to the scooters and the bikes and things. But I think there needs to be some like compromise there.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, kids are kids.
Yeah.
We want them outside. We want them playing. We want
it's
them on
good for
bikes.
property values to have kids around the neighborhood.
That's right. I've sold many homes in our area and people have asked, about demographics and things like that. And they want a place where their kids can feel safe with their kids outside, being kids. So I agree. So that is kind of, one of the things, but I've never had anyone knock on my door and say, hey, your trash can hasn't
been
neither. Moved in the last 24 hours. So we have a pretty lax HOA in that regard. I think everyone there's a general understanding that people want to take care of their properties. And if there was something that was really kind of out of bounds, I think that would be called into question and taken to task. But so far, my experience hasn't been that way. I mean, if we plant a tree, technically we're supposed to run it through the architectural committee. Anything to our landscaping, we do. Just to play along with their rules. And so far they've been very reasonable. Like they understand. They just want to make sure no one's just going willy-nilly and doing something wild out there. But
they can also allow variances, which I think a lot of people don't realize. So if you have something that's maybe different but would be considered reasonable, the HOAs can offer what's called a variance to allow you to do that. But you still have to go through the process. Doesn't mean they're going to, but there is an opportunity for that.
Yep. And most HOAs should allow that.
Hi, this is Aspen Gruen. I'm a partner at the Lions Group. We're dedicated to making your real estate experience the best it can be. If you're looking to buy or sell, go to sjcbroker.com and watch our informational video series. These videos break down the process and shed some light on buying or selling. While you're there, schedule a private consultation with one of our partners. We'd love to sit down, talk strategy, and give you a real advantage in today's market. You deserve the best, so take those steps and we'll see you soon. Now back to the show.
Well, let's get into some of the fun stuff. Some egregious acts by HOAs. Shannon.
the head of the HOA.
I'm
Shannon
HOA Karen.
Shannon has a clarification she would like to make.
Shannon has one big HOA. Your compound, your ranch is just one big HOA that you dictate the rules.
Right. I make them, I enforce them.
That's right.
So those animals are on a tight leash.
That's right.
Any stories that you've heard or read about where HOAs may have been like overly restrictive?
Well, I was just brushing up on some stories, just not in our area, but just brushing up on some stories, just, of times where they've overreached. And I was just listening to one where they were talking about they had caught somebody maybe living in a garage section. And because that is against the rules there, they implemented a new rule that everybody had to leave their garage door open during the hours of like 8 to 5 or something during the day, which of course is absolutely absurd. I mean, people are going to obviously steal things out of your garage and they have better access to your house. So there are plenty of cases where the HOA with good intended rules have, caused problems. Yeah. I know there's been a lot of fights over, flags in yards or, what you can display in your yards as far as signage or political opinions. I know there's been fights over landscape. I was actually reading about one. They were talking about a gentleman who got fined like $100 a day because his shrubs were not tall enough. They weren't at least 3 feet. That kind of stuff I think is
So
absolutely
you just make them grow faster? Or?
Yeah. I mean how do you install new landscape? How do you landscape your yard or beautify your yard or put new things in your yard if you have to put it in mature?
Yeah.
That's not possible. So I do think that sometimes those rules are unintendedly problematic. But like you said, they could just overlook those. They don't have to do that. But sometimes you get those people who they have that ounce of power.
Exactly.
And they're going to be the ones, I've got a list of rules and I'm going to make sure that I go out and I enforce those. And it's those kind of Karens that you want to try to keep out of those positions. You want reasonable people in those positions.
It's whenever they get on the board and then they have a vendetta against you.
Yeah.
That's when I think people start having more issues, which luckily has not been my experience.
Well, we have an HOA. Actually, I have a COA, a condo owners association here locally, and I own a unit in there for investment purposes. And, now that we're talking about it, the rule there is you cannot have your garage door open more than, I think, 30 minutes.
Right.
It's at 15 to 30 minutes.
Most of the time you don't want garage doors open. It's ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want the uniformity.
But
I have a neighbor across the street who has the nicest garage I've ever seen. It's the most organized thing I've ever seen. It literally looks like a showroom.
Mm-hmm.
He leaves that door open all the time.
Just to show it off.
Yeah. I think it's just a show off.
What a show
and you know what? It's working because I'm jealous every time.
Right?
That's funny. But then in that same HOA that we can't have the garage door open more than 15 or 30 minutes, they literally, you can have animals. Like I rented to a gentleman, he's an engineer and he had a dog, very well maintained dog. I mean, he had it schooled and everything. Like it was an awesome dog. And he can't walk out the sidewalk to put the dog in the car, and he can't walk the dog from the sidewalk to the main street and walk him in the adjacent neighborhood. You cannot walk your dog through.
You got to pick him up and carry him.
You have to literally, like, there's a lady in there who puts the dog in a like a wheelbarrow or like a wagon. And then carries it to the street. And I'm like, there's no
doesn't make any
sense in this.
The rule should be you have to have your animal leashed and you have to clean up after them. That's a reasonable rule.
So in that regard, in my opinion, they way overstepped because this engineer he loves his dog. He takes care of his dog. But, and he never broke any rules with it, but it was such a pain. He'd have to back his car up, put his car next to the garage, walk through the garage, load his dog up, and then drive out of the neighborhood to walk his dog.
Could not be me.
It was incredible.
Yeah. Could not be me. I would be walking my dog right through the neighborhood.
Right.
I would.
To me, a bit of an overreach there. And I can understand too, if it's an unruly animal, it's causing distress to people, to neighbors, barking all the time, things like that. I can certainly understand that, but holy moly, not being able to just walk literally, I think he was 75 yards to the main highway, which is outside of the association. He couldn't walk his dog there.
No, that's
absurd.
Yeah, that's an unreasonable rule.
Pretty wild. Let's get into some other unreasonable rules with HOAs that we've heard over the years. Paul, you got a story to share?
Well, I've said before, one of my favorite things to watch is songs being turned into yacht rock.
Yeah.
One of the other ones I found is HOA Karens or HOA. And it's usually when somebody comes to your house to give you a fine, it'll be like, it's 8:05 and the party is supposed to be over. Like it's a kid's birthday party, or like you have the wrong color of beige on your house and it ruins the aesthetic for the whole neighborhood. But one of the big things I always see is trash cans. Like your trash can's overflowing. It's the wind blew the lid off and now it's all over but they give like $50, $100 fines, and it's all the dang time.
Yeah.
And they what I see too is they come over at like the most ridiculous time of the day or night to tell you that you have a fine. I was just reading one that was, they came over at 6:00 in the morning to tell them all of the boxes from moving are unsightly and need to be cleaned up.
And they just moved in last night. Yeah.
That night.
Probably unpacking until like midnight.
Right.
Yeah. But no, the HOA has already fined them.
Yeah.
I didn't have
Pack it back up.
In my HOA. I was moved into a neighborhood that did not have an HOA. It was my second house. And we got like a where it's like, the police officer comes by and tells you have to clean up. We were moving in that day and they were like, yeah, you have to get like your stuff. I'm like, it will be gone in a day or two. And they said 24 hours. I was like, we're moving in. The officer was like, just, it's fine. I just have to tell you this. I'm like, okay. I'm like, it will be gone eventually.
Was that driven from the city? Was like a city ordinance?
I guess people can call. Yeah, it's a city ordinance of like, which I'm like, and I want to be like, you see the neighbor right there?
Yeah.
And you're coming over.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how you get the weed violations.
Yeah, the weed violations.
Yeah. They drive through the alleys and send you a thing.
Or your neighbor hits you.
Hey, and in all fairness to Karen's, what's the male name?
Well, I was going to say
Ben.
Shvin? No. There was a name for a male Karen. I forget what it is, but I just saw one of those HOA stories the other day, and literally these people bought in an HOA, and the guy comes over and knocked on the door, and he said, "Hey, how are you doing? Come on in." He said, "No." He said, "You know who I am?" And he said, "No." And he goes, "Well, you will know who I am. I'm the HOA president." The guy's like, "Oh, well, nice to meet you. What an introduction." The guy said, "You had I think it was like a 40-foot U-Haul that unload your side. I just wanted to let you know that that's against HOA policies. It's only 30-foot U-Hauls or smaller." And the guy's like, "Well, I had no idea." And, this, and the guy was like, "And by the way, the backs of your chairs on your patio can't be higher than," I think it was like 30 inches or something like that, 32 inches. And the guy's like, "Okay, you need to get off of my property." And it was, it was pretty confrontational.
People are so bold. I'm like, did you never get punched in the face?
Right?
Like, you know what I mean?
You need to be.
It's like, some people, it's like, if you're going to nitpick that, I'm like, aren't you scared of like not getting along with people?
Yeah.
It's so like, I don't like not getting along with people. It's like,
right.
It's uncomfortable and it makes you like stressed, and I don't know. And you're living like, that's supposed to be your safe, nice place that you live.
Yeah. Why would you want to start off a bad way with someone? Like just going guns a-blazing.
And I can understand putting rules in place in an HOA, like trash cans and not leaving them out on the street all week, and closing your garage doors. And I get that. I'm fine with that. But why would you even make rules for an HOA that say your chair height has to be so much on your patio? How does that detract from anybody's quality of life?
Yeah.
That is just someone who is so pathetically lonely and sad that they have absolutely nothing to do.
It's the little bit of power.
Exactly. But figure out, how can I really stick it to people that live around me? That's absolutely absurd. There is no reason to even have that kind of rules.
Somebody's going to get you again. The HOA.
I know.
Yeah, the HOA.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
You are the HOA
Karen.
queen.
That's what I hear. Well, so and just so everybody knows, the funny thing about that is I did get roasted last time for being the HOA queen, but my whole intention was saying, I understand why some people want to live in an HOA, especially after you've had people who live in the county here in our area. When you've lived in the county for years and you build a $500,000, $700,000 home and it's impeccably maintained, and then a single wide trailer moves in next to you with 14 pit bulls in the yard and tires on their roof, that's hard to deal with. And now you sell your house and you take $100,000 or $200,000 hit on it. That's hard to deal with. I can understand why some people want to live in an HOA. And I still stand behind that. You can call me a Karen all you want. I don't live in an HOA, but I understand why people would want to. Absolutely.
I like living in an HOA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I will say, so I just sold a house last week that was in an HOA, tiny HOA. I think there was only 13 houses in the neighborhood. Really, really nice houses. But they had these covenants where it said that they had to build this, you could only have so many things. Well, the issue was they were very vague. And then I know, like in my neighborhood, whenever we want to build something or add on, it's very clear, like it has to be these colors, it has to be this, it has blah, 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 which is nice because then it's the same rules for everybody. You know exactly what you can and can't do. This one basically just said it has to go to the architectural board. Okay, so they wanted to build a shop, garage, something, because they can't have their things out and there was no large garage. So they wanted something, to store their boats and RVs and, all these things. So they wanted to build it. And it says on there, you can build up to 5 bays. Okay, great. They would not approve anything over 2 bays. And then it starts to get like, well, you're not even following your covenants.
Your own rules.
And I think for me, if I was on a board like that, I would be so nervous. I don't want anything at my discretion. I don't want anything that could be considered discriminatory. Yeah. I would want very clear rules that you can do this, you can't do this, it has to be this, the setbacks are this, whatever it might be. But when you start saying, no, that just doesn't fit the aesthetic.
Yeah. Or no, I just don't
want that.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That to me, yeah.
Because somebody else is going to come along and get those 5 bays at
And
some point, and that's going to be a problem.
I'm like, and here's the thing. I'm like, could you bring that to a lawyer? Probably, because the covenants say you can. And then the board's coming here saying you can't, but it's also then you're not getting along with your brand new neighbors in a small neighborhood.
Right.
And you don't want that either, because then it's just miserable for everybody, and the money and the time. And
But I think that's a good point, the difference between covenants and HOAs. Because everybody that comes in, they say, is it an HOA? You say no, and then you say, well, there are these covenants. So the difference is an HOA is an active enforcement of rules. Covenants, usually they were built or they were set up at the time that the subdivision was being built. As soon as those covenants are recorded, it's the city's job to enforce them. And if you go and talk to the city of Farmington, they go, I do not care about your covenants.
Right.
So that's the difference between covenants and HOAs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't know if the city, and I don't know, all municipalities may take a different stance. Some are like, look, that's neighbor to neighbor. Others are like, no, we're more actively involved in enforcing covenants. Our city, our local municipality here has said, no, we're not going to get into that. If you have a problem with someone that may be violating the covenants of record, then you have to take them to task. And we actually have seen that play out. I've saw it play out myself over the years, where there was a bunch of 2.5 acre parcels, and someone bought one of those and began building a foundation for a manufactured home. And the neighbor said, no, this is site-built covenants only. And the guy said, sue me. And they did. The neighbors sued him, and they stopped that foundation from going any further. And then that's when I brought my client in, and they bought it. And they turned that foundation into, guess what, a detached shop. And that fit well within the covenants. So it does. Covenants are different. And I'm glad you spoke to that, because you have no active body that's enforcing the covenants. It has to be a neighbor that says, no, I take offense to what you're doing here, and I believe you're crossing the lines of what's recorded with this subdivision.
And some covenants are not enforceable too. Like you'll see a lot in covenants where it says people of a certain race can't purchase the home, or they can't live in the neighborhood.
Like when a neighborhood was maybe established in like 1940 or 1950 or
Yeah, they're still there. They're of record, but they're not enforceable.
Yeah. Yep. Great point. Deed restrictions. If you ran across deed restrictions.
Didn't we have one years ago where somebody
at my expense, yes,
that somebody was angry at the person they were selling it to. So right before closing, he went and put a deed restriction on the property saying that no meat could be consumed on the property. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that one, but I have another one. But keep going. This is interesting.
That might be something maybe I learned that just happened in New Mexico. Maybe it wasn't us. I don't remember, but I do remember that being a thing at one point. And then, of course, that caused a fight, and it did eventually get taken off. But that's a real thing. Now, again, who's going to enforce it? There is no governing body who's going to enforce it. But you could make someone's life miserable if you think you're going to put a deed restriction on there.
Yeah. And deed restrictions are a little bit harder to remove and change than one would anticipate. In fact, we had a situation where a gentleman bought out in the county, and he said, look, I just want enough room where my mother-in-law, we're going to bring her on and put in a second home, a little manufactured home for her to live when she gets up there in her years. And we checked for all the covenants. There was no covenants of record on the property. It was a parcel out all by itself off the highway. And then after we closed, and he brought a little manufactured home on, he had a big, beautiful site-built home, and he had a little manufactured home with very well set up, nice little thing. We get a call from a gentleman that says, hey, we have a deed restriction on that, and I just live down the hill from this property, and they cannot have a manufactured home on this. And we were like, what? And so we went back to the title company. Sure enough, the title company had missed it. And so we ended up having to work with that buyer, because he was clearly wronged in that situation, because he had expressed his intent to move that, and that deed restriction blocked it. So he ended up finding a property that was just adjacent to his, literally adjacent. That was such luck. And moved the home over, bought that little property for I think $14,000 or $15,000, and it worked out. But boy, you got to pay attention to those, because if there is a deed restriction or a covenant, or you're in an HOA, you better understand what you're buying, because it can severely restrict your ability to do what you may want to do with it. So you need to be forthright with what you're planning on doing with it. And I know, Shannon, if you're moving into the city, you're going to be like, I want chickens. I better be able to have chickens.
That's right.
And I want honey. I better have
That's
my
right.
bees. And I better be able to walk out with my 22.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing. One of the other funny stories that we saw in HOA, this one, they had a time limit on trash can pickup. Like, we have 24 hours. This was 30 minutes. The HOA put.
And that's just unreasonable. There's no way you can be home at the time that the trash comes. Because sometimes they might come at 2 or 3 or 2:45 or 3:15. Yeah, you can't just leave somebody at home all day, 1 day a week on trash day to make sure it comes in immediately.
And people were getting
unreasonable.
fined. Yeah,
unreasonable.
That's what you call a money grab.
Yeah. That's unreasonable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and to your point, Aspen, the HOA, this other instance, banned sidewalk chalk, which directly affects who?
Kids.
Children. Yeah.
Typically, that's what I have seen.
And so they ended up fining people. And in fact, they had a Karen who just sat around and watched. And when kids would come back and with a parent or whatever, she would make them, clean up that sidewalk chalk that, washes away when it rains anyways.
When those kids become teenagers, I think there's a perfect house for TP.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing.
That's right.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, we're winding down. We just wanted to give our audience a little taste of what an HOA, a COA, what covenants are, what a deed restriction is, and how that could impact you as an owner of a property. If you're looking to buy a property, you better find out what is of record on that property, what you're really buying, because you may have an intention there that cannot be met based on the rules that are on the books. So, of course, you could always challenge that. That could be an uphill battle and cause a lot of heartache and cost a lot of money. But it is always something that you could look at doing if it was a passion of yours to have chickens in, the country club. So you never know. So anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. We've covered some great content today. If you like our content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put out regular podcasts every week and talk about hot topics like this. And of course, you can go to sjcbroker.com, schedule a private consultation with any member here at the Lions Group. We'd love to sit down with you, whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial. We can give you an advantage in today's market. So thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning into The Den, powered by the Lions Group. If you got value from today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. Check the show notes with direct links to our buyer and seller video series, your inside track to making smarter moves in real estate. Want to take it further? Visit sjcbroker.com to learn more about the Lions Group or schedule a private consultation today. Complex markets demand smart strategies. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, we're here to give you the edge. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in The Den.